Welcome to IronHand Tech. Today we are going on an exciting journey of recycling old cars, where old cars, which seem to be just waste, become valuable resources. Have you ever wondered where our old cars, once our pride, go when they no longer run? Let me explore this magical transformation process. Recycling is not just about processing scrap metal into new products, but also about the story of regeneration and protecting our planet. But first, why should we recycle old cars? What is so special about these cars that have served us for decades? First, let's talk about the environment. Not only do old cars take up a lot of space in landfills, they also contain a lot of toxic substances. If not disposed of properly, they can pollute the land and water. Recycling cars helps reduce this toxic waste. According to statistics, recycling steel from cars can save up to 74% of energy compared to producing new steel from raw materials. This not only reduces CO2 emissions, but also saves precious natural resources. And for comparison, recycling just 6 cars is enough to build a brand new steel frame house. Second, the economics. An old car is more than just a pile of scrap metal. The average car is about 65% steel, 8% aluminum, 16% plastic, and many other materials, all of which can be reused. Recycling helps us recover these materials, reducing waste and creating new economic value. Recycling old cars also creates jobs for thousands of workers. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, the auto recycling industry contributes billions of dollars to the economy each year. Now let's take a look at the process of recycling an old car. Brace yourselves because we are about to embark on a journey that is no less exciting. First, workers will disassemble everything possible from the car. The dismantling process requires meticulousness and high technology. Valuable parts such as the engine, gearbox, and tires will be reused or resold. At the same time, hazardous waste will be treated according to regulations to avoid polluting the environment. Statistics show that about 80% of the parts of an old car can be reused or resold. Next, all fluids such as oil, fuel, coolant are drained and safely disposed of. It is estimated that an average car contains about 40-50 liters of fluids, which if not disposed of properly, can cause serious pollution. After dismantling, the car is pressed and fed into a crusher to be crushed into small pieces. Crane operators will lift a car and put it into the crusher. In just a few seconds, the car will be turned into a loaf of steel. The cars are then fed into the crushers via a conveyor system. These are hungry steel giants, with their sharp, toothy mouths always wide open and their terrifying power of hundreds of tons of crushing force. Within minutes, the car goes from being intact to being reduced to metal scraps. Statistics show that every year, about 15 million used cars are crushed in the U.S. These scraps are then sorted and transported on a conveyor system, which has 2 conveyor belts, each with 2 magnets, the purpose of which is to separate the steel from the remaining materials inside the car, such as plastic, copper, leather seats, electrical wires. About 75% of the weight of an old car can be recycled into new materials. The steel scraps are further carefully sorted to obtain the cleanest steel before entering the recycling stage. The sorted metal is fed into the melting furnace. The steel pieces are fed into the arc furnace, where the electrodes are equipped with a high-power electric source that creates an arc that ionizes the surrounding gas particles to form plasma. The high temperature of the plasma melts the steel. The electrodes are constantly adjusted to maintain a stable arc and melt the entire block of steel. The molten steel is then refined and cast, poured into a specially shaped mold, and cooled slowly to form a steel billet. From here, the steel is processed into coil steel or other types of steel according to its intended use. This process helps us recover about 15 million tons of steel each year from old cars in the US. And so from old cars, we have new steel bars, ready for a new life. Recycling steel from cars helps to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions compared to producing new steel, contributing to environmental protection and creating significant economic values. Recycling cars is not only an industrial process, but also an act of environmental and resource protection. Every old car, no matter how many years it has served us, still has value and potential for a new life. Have you ever wondered what oil barrels will be recycled into after being used? Today we will explore the process of recycling used oil barrels at a traditional recycling plant. Watch the entire video to see what the final product is. Are you ready? Let's start. First, used oil barrels are gathered at the factory. They are cut and separated completely by hand into different parts. Look at how this man works. I'm wondering why they don't use hand cutters for this process. Then they are pressed flat through rice-powered presses and electric presses. After pressing flat, the steel plates are put into a chemical tank for cleaning, completely removing dirt. This is a very important step. It is necessary to ensure that there are no chemicals left on the steel panels. After drying, they are cut into pieces about 20 centimeters wide and ready for shaping. Through the press, these thin steel plates are polished and shaped. This is the step I find most interesting in this factory because they are completely made by machine. It's like putting a pig into a machine, reading a book while waiting, and coming out the other side are sausages. This is a complete machine system from shaping, smoothing, and welding. This is the only step that is completely performed by machines. Flat steel bars are gradually shaped into steel pipes. Water plays a very important role in this process. It has both a cooling effect and a solvent for the grinding machine. This is the first time I have seen an automatic welding machine. What an interesting thing. Steel pipe manufacturing is almost the most suitable recycling option for these used oil barrels. And perhaps you have your answer. Iron water pipes have taken shape. From here, they continue to go through the process of shaping, strengthening, and shading before being released to the market. A factory of this scale can recycle hundreds of barrels of oil every day, creating jobs for dozens of workers. However, outdated technology, lack of protection measures for workers, unstable income, and long working hours are major challenges for the waste recycling industry in developing countries, and that includes Pakistan. Every day, hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil are used around the world, but only about 10% is recycled. Despite many difficulties and challenges, the waste recycling industry still plays an important role, not only helping to reduce pollution, but also generating income for many Pakistanis. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey. If you find the video useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on interesting videos. See you again in the next videos. Today, we will go through a very interesting recycling process that you cannot imagine. First of all, to make this video experience more interesting, let's predict the results of this process. Answer this question. In your opinion, what can scrap iron be recycled into? A. Construction steel. B. Cast iron cooking pot. C. Harrow disc. Keep the answer in mind and watch the video until the end to find out the answer. Here we are in a metal recycling plant. The environment is quite primitive and the workers often lack proper protective equipment. Unlike plastic bag scrap, iron and steel scrap is much larger and heavier. Therefore, sorting and collecting it requires a lot of effort and time. The first step in the metal recycling process is scrap metal collection. In Pakistan, a significant portion of metal waste is imported. Pakistan imported 455,000 tons of ferrous scrap from the United States last year. Workers will sort the scrap, cutting them into pieces of suitable size for the recycling process. Raw metal is a common type of waste in the industrial production process, including steel plates, damaged or unusable products, scrap from the production process, etc. The metal pieces are sent to a furnace. Unlike other recycling processes, the iron is not melted. It is heated to a temperature that allows it to be flattened, around 700–900 degrees Celsius. The red-hot iron bars are fed into the press. Here, in an extremely manual manner, the iron bars are pressed repeatedly on the press to achieve the appropriate flatness. This can be called a hot rolling process. For those who don't know, when iron is red hot, its crystal structure changes, making the iron more flexible and easily deformed under the influence of external forces. This drum continuously rotates and presses the red-hot iron bar into a flat, square iron plate. I wonder what kind of superior skill these workers have that keeps them from getting burned while working. The iron sheets are now fed into the cutting machine. They are cut into round iron sheets. Once again, they were put into a furnace. This machine made a square-shaped hole in the center of the iron. Now you guessed it, it was Captain America's shield. Of course not, I'm just kidding. These iron plates are polished, heated again, and given another hexagonal hole, this time on the outer edge. Now they are polished again, then they are painted with several layers of paint. You can probably guess what this process is all about. And here is our finished product. These are the harrow discs. Let me personify this harrow. From a distance, the harrow looked like a giant monster moving slowly. A series of shiny, round discs rotated regularly, creating streaks of soil that were thrown up and then dropped down. With each rotation of the discs, the hard surface soil seemed to be torn up and broken into pieces. A little closer, we could see more clearly how the discs were plowing the soil. They cut into the ground, crushing the hard clumps of soil, stirring them up and down. Each time the disc rotated, the soil was loosened a little more. The grooves created were neat, like lines drawn on a painting. Isn't that interesting? You may not believe it, but this manual steel recycling process can reduce CO2 emissions by up to 70%. It's great that our workers not only create new products, but also contribute to protecting the environment. Facilities like these contribute to the local economy by creating jobs and reducing the need to import raw materials, as well as tackling the widespread waste problem. So recycling metal is not only about turning waste into valuable resources, but also protecting the environment, conserving energy, and supporting the economy. Looking at the attack-weight ships floating around the oceans to transport goods or oil and gas, few of us ask the question, these convenient vehicles, when they are no longer of use, what will people do with them? There are many ways to handle these ships, such as stopping operations and selling them for scrap, using them as training targets, sinking them to create artificial coral reefs, of which recycling is the most common way of handling. The ship will be put in a barn, removing valuable equipment and selling all or part of it to recycling companies. So how does this forum work? Let's find out in today's video. First, let's find out why we have to recycle old ships. Giant ships weighing thousands of tons after long and stormy journeys will have to rest. The more new ships are produced, the more retired ships, however, if these giant ships are not handled. They will cause many impacts on the environment and human health. First is environmental pollution. Old ships contain many toxic substances such as oil, paint, asbestos, heavy metals, lead, mercury, cadmium, etc. When abandoned, these substances will leak into the marine environment, polluting water sources, affecting marine ecosystems and marine species. According to a report by the International Maritime Organization, IMO, every year, millions of tons of toxic waste from old ships are discharged into the marine environment. This seriously affects the ecological environment and human health. Compared to sinking or abandoning ships, recycling is by far the most environmentally friendly and economical way to dispose of old ships. Not recycling old ships is also not economically viable because old ships still contain valuable materials that can be recycled, which if not utilized will be a waste of resources. One of the largest and most active shipbreaking markets is India. Nearly 140 kilometers of the country's coastline is used as shipbreaking yards. India exports 1/3 of the world's ship scrap. So how do people recycle old ships? First, the ships are stripped of any remaining oil and fuel. The oil and fuel on board are pumped out and transferred to specialized tanks. Then the cargo holds and engine compartments are cleaned to remove dirt and grease. Devices containing toxic substances, such as batteries and accumulators, are removed and processed separately. The engines and machinery of the ships are often very valuable. They are removed and sold to recycling plants or used as spare parts. Electronic devices such as radar, sonar, and interior equipment, such as doors, seats, and air conditioning systems, are also removed, recovered for precious metals or recycled. The ship is now ready for the dismantling process. Depending on the size and specifications of each ship, the dismantling process varies in scale and method. The traditional method uses an oxyacetylene torch to cut through the steel plates. High-temperature plasma or high-pressure water jets can also be used. Today, this work is largely carried out in developing countries and is accompanied by unacceptably high rates of work-related deaths, injuries, and occupational diseases. In November 2016, 17 people were killed in a series of explosions on an old oil tanker at a breaking yard in Gadani, Pakistan. In 2019 alone, 26 ship-breaking deaths were reported in Bangladesh. The hull is the first place to be dismantled, which is usually cut into large steel plates. Internal structures such as decks and bulkheads are cut into small pieces. The steel plates are sorted by thickness and chemical composition for different recycling processes. Other metals such as copper and aluminum are separated for recycling. In Bangladesh, an estimated 36,000 workers work in the shipbreaking industry, and half of the country's total steel is produced from scrap collected from shipbreakers. It is estimated that it takes an average of 500 to 1,500 workers to dismantle and recycle a ship. Most of the steel after being dismantled is sent to recycling facilities, where it is put into blast furnaces to be melted at high temperatures. Then the molten steel is refined to remove impurities and adjust the chemical composition. Finally, the liquid steel is cast into new steel products, such as steel bars and steel coils. Waste generated during the demolition process also needs to be treated. Asbestos is sprayed with water to reduce dust and collected with vacuum equipment. Lead-containing paint is scraped off and treated according to regulations. Solid waste is classified by type, paper, plastic, wood, and recycled or treated. Wastewater from the demolition process is treated to remove pollutants before being discharged into the environment. Impacts of ship recycling. Although there are many benefits from ship recycling, there are also many problems that the ship recycling industry needs to face. First of all, it is about labor safety. Shipbreaking has a lot of potential risks of labor accidents. According to the International Labor Organization, IMO, old ship breaking is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. Impact on the environment. The World Bank's 2010 report provides reliable research results, estimating that by 2030, Bangladesh and Pakistan will accumulate millions of tons of hazardous waste from shipbreaking. This includes 85,000 tons of asbestos, 256,000 tons of toxic chemicals known as PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, mainly from the ship's electrical cables, 225,000 tons of ozone-depleting substances, 75,000 tons of paint containing heavy metals and toxins, 720 tons of heavy metals, nearly 2.2 million cubic meters of liquid organic waste, and more than 1 million tons of other hazardous waste. Old ships from developed countries are often brought to developing countries under the guise of operating ships for dismantling. In this way, shipping companies from developed countries, especially in Europe, can circumvent their own country's very strict environmental laws. In the future, to minimize the negative impacts of the ship recycling industry, people have studied many different methods, of which beaching is the most popular method because it can take advantage of natural beaches with high tides and long sandbanks. However, this pollutes the sandbanks and the surrounding environment. This method is not considered environmentally friendly. Instead, scientists have developed a sustainable and environmentally friendly process that can be implemented by ship-breaking facilities in developing countries without significantly increasing costs. The proposed method is to carry out the entire ship-breaking process on a specially constructed demolition deck rather than on a mud surface. The 4 different layers of the demolition deck, made from concrete, cobblestone, and sand, will ensure that all different types of hazardous waste are retained and not released into the environment. Since each layer has a different degree of porosity and the ability to regulate the way materials pass through it, hazardous materials and waste are effectively retained and cannot reach the bottom of the demolition deck or flow out to sea. The research model demonstrates the potential to reduce or even eliminate the possibility of hazardous materials from ship-breaking activities polluting the surrounding environment. The proposed approach is sustainable on 3 levels: protecting the environment, allowing ship-breaking activities to continue to benefit livelihoods and reduce the exploitation of natural resources, and using the most natural materials available to build ship-breaking platforms that are affordable and reusable. However, there are still many challenges for this process due to the barriers of awareness of the authorities, as well as the economic interests of businesses operating in the industry. According to statistics in 2017, about 80% of the total number of old ships globally is recycled in rudimentary conditions on the beaches of Alang in India, Chittagong in Bangladesh, and Gadani in Pakistan. Ships, those mighty giants, have finally come to the end of their lives. Recycling is not just an end, but the beginning of a new, more sustainable life cycle. Every year, thousands of ships become a burden on the marine environment. If not properly disposed of, they will cause serious consequences, threatening the lives of marine life. But we can change that. By investing in modern recycling technology, developing strict regulations, and raising public awareness, we can turn old ships into valuable assets for a green future. Let's join hands today for a clean ocean and a green planet for future generations. What do you think after watching this video? Please let us know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this video. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next interesting videos.